Pope Leo XIV. He spoke in Latin saying, "Peace be with all of you," in his first words as the new Pope.
Pope Leo emerging onto the balcony, greeting the world as pontiff for the first time.
Pope Leo XIV, this is a historic day for the US, and we will pray for him as he begins the sacred work of leading the Catholic Church.
Pope Leo XIV didn't walk into the Vatican. He walked into history. No one predicted that this quiet cardinal from Italy would end up leading over 1.3 billion Catholics. But when he stepped onto the balcony that day, something changed. He wasn't smiling like others. He wasn't waving to the crowd. He stood still, looked at the sky, and simply said, "The Church will now face the truth."
Pope Leo XIV, it will be a very meaningful moment.
Why did his words feel heavier than any sermon? Why was the Vatican press office silent for days after his speech? Why did 3 senior bishops resign just 24 hours later? Why were some calling him the Disruptor Pope within his first week? The answer came slowly and shockingly through a series of appointments that stunned both the faithful and the powerful. Pope Leo XIV wasn't just shuffling roles. He was shaking the Church's deepest foundations, and not everyone was ready for it.
Pope Leo XIV proved that he is, let's say, quite the diplomat. He first spoke.
A Vatican insider whispered, "It's not just about appointments. It's about cleaning up centuries of silence." His first 7 decisions would go on to start protests, secret meetings, and even fears of a full-blown schism. But was it courage or carelessness? One thing was clear. Pope Leo XIV wasn't trying to please anyone. He was trying to be honest.
Pope Leo XIV's first general audience as Pope, so it had attached to it a certain additional significance.
And that honesty was about to divide the Catholic world. The shock heard across Rome. The Vatican is used to quiet changes, silent approvals, slow reforms. But Pope Leo XIV didn't believe in silence. Within 48 hours of his inauguration, he fired the head of the Vatican Bank. Not reassigned, not asked to resign, fired. Publicly. On record. His reason? No one managing the Church's wealth should fear daylight. The man he fired, Archbishop Luigi Mancini, was one of the most powerful men in Rome.
Archbishop, we thank you so much for your time. We know you're a longtime friend of Pope Leo XIV.
For years, he handled billions in church assets. Suddenly, he was gone. No warning, no farewell. Then came the second shock. Pope Leo replaced him with a 41-year-old laywoman, not a priest, not a nun, a former financial investigator who had previously exposed corruption in Italian corporations. Her name? Elena Moretti. Her response? God doesn't need secrecy. He needs accountability. The move was historic. No pope had ever appointed a laywoman to such a post. Bishops murmured. Some protested. A few even accused him of breaking tradition. But Pope Leo replied, "Tradition without justice is just habit." One journalist asked a retired bishop, "How serious is this?" The bishop said, "It's as if a storm entered the Sistine Chapel." Pope Leo wasn't finished. He hinted at more surprises, more uncomfortable truths. But why now? And what did he know that others didn't? The list no one wanted to read. A week after the bank firing, the Vatican received a confidential file. Inside were 38 names, all high-ranking officials, all under internal investigation. The file had been quietly prepared under Pope Benedict XVI, but was buried.
Benedict served as head of the Roman Catholic Church for 8 years until 2013, when he became the first pope in 600 years.
Pope Leo ordered it opened, and then he did something no one expected. He read all 38 names aloud, in Latin, during a private meeting with the College of Cardinals. The doors were shut, the air was tense. A priest who was present leaked part of what he heard. Some faces turned white, some whispered prayers, one even walked out. Then Leo said, "These names are not a judgment, but hiding them would be." 3 days later, 7 of those individuals offered resignations. The public didn't know why. Official statements said health concerns or early retirement. But insiders knew. Leo had drawn a line.
Pope Leo will do this, will witness to that and invite the world.
What shocked many wasn't just the exposure, it was the bravery. No other pope had dared to bring secrets to light this openly. Some Catholics wept, others grew angry. A Spanish bishop said, "The pope is cutting away rot with no anesthesia." But critics asked, was he being brave or reckless? How would the faithful respond when the next names came forward? Was this the beginning of renewal or a dangerous rebellion? Elevating the unseen. After confronting corruption, Pope Leo turned to something more subtle: invisibility. In his second wave of appointments, he promoted 3 priests from forgotten corners of the world.
A man is suing the Pittsburgh Catholic Diocese, claiming 3 priests abused him when he was a child.
One was from a leper colony in the Philippines. Another worked in a refugee camp in South Sudan. The third ran a shelter for trafficked women in Colombia. None had powerful sponsors. None had ever stepped foot inside the Vatican. But Pope Leo said, "Those who carry the heaviest crosses deserve the strongest platforms." He made all 3 cardinals, a rank few ever reach. The church had never seen anything like it. The men wore worn robes. Their hands showed scars. Their voices trembled during their first speeches.
Pope Leo cemented his role as the Bishop of Rome over the weekend, declaring,
Father Jorge Luis from Colombia said, "I never thought Rome would hear my story. Now it belongs to all of us." These appointments weren't about fame. They were about presence. Pope Leo wanted the poor, the sick, the forgotten, represented at the highest table. A bishop complained off record, "We can't just hand out hats like charity." But Leo responded, "It's not charity, it's justice." Was this a reminder of Christ's teachings, or a challenge to the church's power structure? Either way, something new was unfolding. The Vatican halls, once silent, were echoing with voices long ignored. Women at the table. Then came his most debated move yet, including women in leadership. Not symbolic roles, real authority. Pope Leo appointed Sister Daniela Rizzo as secretary for the Congregation of Bishops. She now had the power to help choose future bishops around the world, a role traditionally held by cardinals only. He also named 2 female theologians, both married mothers, to the Papal Doctrine Council. This wasn't tokenism. It was structural change. The Pope explained, "The Church cannot speak to the world while silencing half of it." Reactions were split. Progressive Catholics praised him. Some conservative leaders threatened to boycott the next synod. One traditionalist cardinal told Italian media, "This will destroy the balance of our structure." A nun from Kenya replied, "Maybe it's time the structure feels uncomfortable." What Pope Leo had done wasn't just new. It was disruptive. He was forcing the Church to face a question it had avoided for centuries. Can it still lead the world if it doesn't look like the world? Breaking the silence on abuse. Pope Leo XIV didn't pause to think about public image when he made his 6th appointment. He chose Father Tomasz Wolski, a priest who had spent the last 15 years helping abuse victims in Poland, to head the Vatican's office for the protection of minors. But that wasn't the shock. The real shock came when Pope Leo gave Wolski full power to reopen any closed abuse file, even those deemed resolved. And then he said during a press conference, "If we hide pain to protect reputation, we serve ourselves, not Christ." One reporter asked, "Even if it involves cardinals?" The Pope nodded, "Especially if it involves cardinals." For decades, scandals involving child abuse by clergy had rocked the Church. Investigations came and went. Some believed the worst was over, others believed nothing had truly changed. But now doors were opening. Old cases were being re-examined. Names once protected were now being reviewed. A victim's mother wrote publicly, "I've waited 30 years for this day." Inside Vatican walls, not everyone cheered. A few whispered that Leo was ripping open scars. But for thousands of families, it felt like healing had finally begun. Would justice finally reach the top ranks of the church? Or would resistance from within silence this effort once again? Time would reveal which voice was louder, truth or tradition. In an age where every word can reach millions, Leo understood something. The church had lost control of its own story. So he turned to someone completely unexpected, Matteo Salvi, a 26-year-old digital journalist known for challenging church leadership on Twitter. Matteo once called the Vatican's communication ancient whispers in a world of sirens. Leo appointed him director of Vatican media. When asked why, Pope Leo simply said, "If he could criticize us honestly, maybe he can help us speak honestly." Matteo's first move? Dismantle the centuries-old media chain and replace it with a live, multilingual, youth-led newsroom. He also launched a platform for public questions and insisted the Pope answer one question live every Sunday. It wasn't just a new strategy. It was a new face for a very old institution. A senior Vatican spokesperson resigned within days, calling it disrespectful chaos. But younger Catholics flooded Matteo's new app with messages, videos, and hard questions. One said, "This is the first time I feel the church is listening." Others weren't convinced. A conservative blog accused the Pope of making a circus out of sacred duty. But Leo didn't blink. We don't lose dignity by speaking plainly. We lose it by pretending everything is fine. The synod no one expected. The synod of bishops is usually a slow-moving affair, long speeches, cautious debates. But under Leo, it became a stage for confession, confrontation, and change. He invited 200 lay people, including teenagers and factory workers. He asked them not to praise the church, but to tell it how it had failed them. One woman stood up and said, "When I was 16 and pregnant, my priest told me I was dirt." A young man added, "I left the church because it never asked me what I needed." Leo didn't defend the church. He didn't explain theology. He said, "If you hurt someone in the name of God, you are not serving God." Then he ordered all bishops in the room to listen, in silence, for 6 hours. This moment was broadcast live. Some bishops were shocked. One called it the most humiliating day of my service. But Leo said it was the most Christian moment of our time. By the end of the synod, 14 policy changes were proposed, including better training for pastoral care, language reform, and mental health counseling at parishes. Critics cried, emotional chaos. But Leo asked, should the church be a throne or a table? The Catholic Church owns billions in assets, real estate, gold, investments. While priests preach simplicity, cathedrals sit in luxury. Pope Leo XIV wasn't afraid to touch that contradiction. He began by auctioning off a historic but unused palace near Rome. The proceeds, $43 million, were sent directly to hunger relief programs in 12 African countries. Then he ordered every diocese to publish full financial statements. The money that enters the church must be traceable and justifiable, he declared. Some cardinals pushed back, arguing this would expose the church to political risk. Leo replied, "We are not hiding from governments. We are hiding from conscience." A few bishops called it dangerous. A German cardinal resigned in protest, saying Leo's reforms would turn Rome into an accountant's office. But the public saw something else. Ordinary Catholics donated more. Transparency led to trust. A retired nun in Ireland said on TV, "It's the first time I felt proud of our finances." Was this a one-time gesture, or the beginning of a long, hard transformation? And could Leo keep up the pressure without collapsing from resistance? For years, the Church's position on LGBTQ individuals remained controversial. Past popes used careful language, but Pope Leo XIV broke that pattern. He invited 12 LGBTQ Catholics from around the world to meet with him privately. One was a transgender nurse from Brazil. Another was a gay priest dismissed from ministry. After the meeting, the Pope issued a simple statement. "We have used doctrine to close doors. It's time we open them with love." This statement caused shockwaves. Some hailed it as historic. Others said it was heresy. A bishop from Poland refused to attend the next Vatican meeting. A conservative news outlet asked, "Has the Pope abandoned Scripture?" But Leo's message was clear. "I am not rewriting the Bible. I am reminding the world that Christ sat with outcasts, not the comfortable." He didn't change church law, but he changed tone. And that, for many, was more powerful. A Catholic parent in the Philippines said, "For the first time, I can tell my gay son that the Pope sees him." Will this lead to doctrinal reform, or just more division? Either way, the silence was broken. Revising the role of cardinals. The Church has always walked a thin line between faith and politics, but Leo stepped right across that line. He openly criticized governments for failing the poor. He condemned policies that punished migrants. He even called out Catholic politicians by name who speak of God but legislate injustice. This didn't go down well. A U.S. senator wrote on social media, "The Pope should stay out of our laws." Leo responded during Mass, "If speaking for the voiceless is political, then so was Christ." Several world leaders sent diplomatic notes. Some ambassadors withdrew, but the Pope stood firm. He also met secretly with grassroots leaders, farmers, factory workers, refugees. He wanted to understand real pain, not filtered reports. And then he announced a new initiative. The Church must stop waiting in marble halls. We will go where the cries are. Dozens of parishes worldwide were tasked with community justice missions, from prison work to shelter building. Will this make a real difference, or just create more enemies? Leo believed faith without risk wasn't faith at all. Tradition had always defined cardinals as men of influence, usually from Europe, mostly over 60. Leo changed the rules. He said, "Every continent must have equal voice. Every voice must come from experience, not politics." He appointed a 38-year-old peace negotiator from Congo, a former gang leader turned priest from Honduras, and a nun who led education programs in Afghanistan. Old rules were being rewritten. The College of Cardinals was furious. Some said the new members lacked theological depth. Leo responded, "They may not speak Latin, but they speak truth." An insider said the atmosphere was tense. Some older cardinals feel ignored. Others are quietly supporting him. It's war behind marble walls. The Pope even hinted he may one day allow voting rights to lay members. What would that mean for future papal elections? If change continues, the next pope could be someone completely unexpected. Leo began weekly visits outside Vatican walls, homeless shelters, prisons, war zones. He sat on floors, shared meals, and listened. He said, "A church that forgets the streets, forgets Christ." One photo went viral. Leo washing the feet of undocumented workers in Greece. He called it, "the closest I've felt to holiness." Critics said it was a publicity stunt. But refugees wept. One woman whispered, "He touched my child." No leader does that. Priests across the world began opening their churches for night shelters and free clinics. Something was changing, not just in Rome, but everywhere. Not everyone celebrated Leo's reforms. Secret letters, silent meetings. A leaked memo spoke of plans to limit papal authority. A small group of cardinals allegedly discussed calling a council to challenge his leadership. But Leo didn't fight back with anger. He met them. He said, "You can disagree with me, but you must be honest with yourselves." Some softened, others grew colder. The threat of schism, a real break in the church, hung in the air. Would Leo survive this? Or would history remember him as the Pope who dared and lost? Pope Leo XIV hasn't finished yet. His appointments, statements, and actions have shaken the Vatican like no one before him. But will they last? Will the church follow him or push back? And what will future popes do with the system he's reshaped? We've seen leaders rise with passion, only to be buried under tradition. We've seen reforms start with fire and end in silence. So we must ask, will Pope Leo's honesty become the new standard, or just a bold moment in time? Will his actions change lives in decades to come? Or will the old church win again? More importantly, do we, the faithful, want change, or just the comfort of routine? Because in the end, this story isn't about one man, it's about all of us. Some say Leo is tearing down walls faster than new foundations can be built. But perhaps that's the point. He once said, God didn't ask Peter to build a castle, he asked him to follow. Maybe Leo believes the church must first be unburdened before it can be reborn. Every stripped title, every reopened wound, every uncomfortable question, it all seems aimed at one truth. Faith without honesty is fragile. And yet, the cost is rising. Attendance at some conservative churches has dropped. Donations from wealthy donors have slowed. One Italian newspaper called it the papacy of poverty. But Leo has never flinched. When asked about the backlash, he responded, Christ didn't promise comfort. He promised truth and a cross to carry. Still, many Catholics, especially the young, feel more connected than ever. Seminary enrollment in Africa and South America has increased. Online forums are buzzing with theological debate. One teenager from Nigeria wrote, "For the first time, I feel like my church wants to hear me, not just teach me." Whether Leo's legacy lasts 50 years or 5 more months, the impact has already cracked open doors long sealed shut. But time is ruthless. History forgets the brave unless the brave leave more than echoes. Leo's health has begun to falter. His team grows quieter. Resistance grows louder. The world waits, unsure. Will this chapter close in triumph or tragedy? And when it does, will the church follow his footsteps or cover them in stone? And there you have it. Pope Leo XIV's first appointments haven't just rattled the Vatican. They've sent shockwaves across the entire Catholic world. For some, it's a revolution. For others, it's a rebellion. But no one, absolutely no one, can ignore what just happened. In a place known for centuries of silence and symmetry, Pope Leo has done the unthinkable. He's chosen voices over titles, compassion over custom, and truth over tradition. Whether you see him as a reformer or a radical, one thing is clear. The church under Pope Leo XIV is changing, fast. But here's the real question. Is the Vatican ready for him? Or more importantly, are we? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment below, because what happens next might not just change the church. It might change history.